Well, good evening, everyone, and welcome to the September 18th, 2025 Unified Commercial Mixed Use Development, affectionately called UCMUD, Review Committee meeting for the Lock Up Self-Storage Project. We will be holding a hybrid public meeting which enables remote electronic participation as legally authorized by the Code of Virginia for the Planning Commission's electronic meeting policy adopted on July 7th, 2022. Members of the UCMUD Review Committee subgroup for this project are participating both here in person and virtually through electronic means. At this time, I'd like to orient everyone to our hybrid environment and cover a few specifics about how tonight's meeting will run. Members of the public may attend the meeting here in person or electronically by using the Microsoft Teams link provided on the project webpage, the county's events calendar, and the email notifications sent to email subscribers. Additionally, there is a dial-in phone option for those who wish to use it. For our subgroup members joining virtually, if anyone loses internet connectivity during today's meeting, please reconnect with us by phone. Please keep your phones and devices muted until you are called upon. Turn off sound to any devices around you to minimize interference. For our virtual attendees using Microsoft Teams, please turn off your video feed. I will address when it is appropriate to turn it on in a moment. The Microsoft Teams meeting chat is active to serve two purposes: for subgroup members who need technical assistance and for members of the public to add their names to the list for public comment, which will be taken at the end of the meeting. The Teams chat should not be used for discussion. Those who were planning to provide public comment will still need to do so at the end of the meeting, as the chat will not serve as that opportunity. All public comments must be shared verbally for the record during the assigned public comment period. If subgroup members participating virtually wish to be recognized to speak on an item during the course of the meeting, please turn your video feed and raise your virtual hand in Teams. I will monitor the video feeds that are on as an indicator of who would like to speak. If subgroup members are participating via phone today without the video option, please announce your name and group you are representing now, and I will verbally check in to see if you wish to be recognized, as you do not have the video feed option.
There's a phone number.
We have a phone number. Is that phone number?
831-242-0286. If you're joining us by phone, could you please state your name?
Yes, hello. My name is Jamin Miller. I'm with SPRC Companies. An adjacent property. I'm also dialed in on Teams directly, just in case there's connectivity issues.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. For our members of the public who would like to provide feedback and comment, you will be called on to speak at the end of the meeting and will be allotted 2 to 3 minutes to speak on tonight's agenda item. The speaking time allotted will depend on the number of speakers we have this evening. If you wish to speak, please enter your name in the meeting chat for virtual attendees, or provide staff with your name if in person, and you will be added to the speakers list. Lastly, this is a public forum. Today's meeting will be recorded and posted to the county website. All information associated with today's meeting, whether written or spoken, is subject to Freedom of Information Act requirements. On that note, I think we should go around the room and introduce ourselves. We'll start with Tenley.
Tenley Peterson, Planning Commission.
My name is Tony Strider. I'm also with the Planning Commission.
Steve Sockwell, Forestry and Natural Resources Commission.
Andrew Corlo, C2E2, Climate Change and Environment Energy Commission.
I'm part of the Pedestrian Advisory Committee.
Paula Model, Planning Commission.
Chad Berwick, Clarendon Cordell Civic Association.
Justin Yap, Lockup Self-Storage.
Bob Sudan, Lockup Self-Storage.
Nick Cummings, Walsh Colucci, Land Use Attorney for the applicant.
Bryce Johnson, staff with the Department of Environmental Services.
Adriana Torres, Planning Commission.
Kevin Lamb, staff with the Planning Division.
Thea Bagley, Planning Commission and Chair of the UCMUD, and on the side here,
Dave Schutz, Ashton Heights Civic Association.
Dave, you're.
I haven't been, ennobled as the representative. I'm coming.
Oh, okay,
Individual.
thank you for clarifying. I'm so excited with the Civic Association.
I don't think we've chosen. Not sure.
We were there last night and we talked about someone coming, and Dave was kind enough to invite us, coordinate that. And so, look, if he wants to sit at the table.
If you want to sit at the table, you're more, I don't see anybody else from your Civic Association. So if you'd like to sit at the table and actually make comments,
Thanks.
You go for it. Okay, thank you. We're happy to have you. And then after that?
Yeah, Carlos Mendia with Fuller DC Civil Engineer for the applicants.
Washington, Washkalucci, planning attorney for the applicant.
We Britta, Grove Slate.
And then online, we have 3 UCMUD review committee members as well. Wanted to raise your hand.
Peter Robertson, Planning Commission.
Karen Cavada, Planning Commission.
Mr. Goodman, are you representing a group or commission?
I'm actually just listening in. Ambar is my representative at the table there for the Pedestrian Advisory Committee. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, thank you so much. Before we start, I just want to give a couple comments on, we live in a very emotionally charged world out there. We are gathered here to review a proposal that has come in front of the county. And here, while we're here tonight, we will do that in a very civil way. And we will hear one another's comments. We will not argue with anyone's comments. We will hear staff out. We will hear the applicant out, and then we will have an open discussion. And I do reserve as chair the right to give a timeout to anybody who doesn't like to do it that way. So with that note, let's take it away, Kevin.
So we have a couple presentations for you tonight. The first is staff's presentation. So once again, my name is Kevin Lamb. I'm with the Planning Division, and tonight I'll be providing the presentation on behalf of staff for the lock-up self-storage project. So I'll begin tonight's meeting with an overview of the project and some policy guidance, followed by a quick rundown of the UCMUD project type. I'll then go through the following topics listed here for discussion and then conclude with next steps. So to kick things off, the subject site is located at 3138 10th Street North on the southern edge of Clarendon. It's bordered by 2 apartment buildings, the Clarendon 3131 condos. Over here is a used car facility. We have the Joyce Motor site, and then we also have the Verizon switching station to the north. So the site itself is currently developed with a 4-story office building and some associated surface parking here. So the proposal consists of a self-service storage facility with ground floor retail along 10th Street. So the building itself is 55 feet and 5 stories and will have a total density of 3.28 FAR. The site includes 21 total parking spaces and 3 loading spaces for the storage and retail uses. And the applicant is requesting the following zoning ordinance modifications for additional density. The build-to line on Irving Street, ground floor retail percentage, reducing that, and then unenclosed loading spaces. So moving on to the policy guidance. On the general land use plan, the site is designated primarily service commercial in pink, and a small portion of it is designated low medium residential, shown in orange. Is also located within the Clarendon Revitalization District and therefore subject to the Clarendon Sector Plan. So in terms of zoning, the site is currently zoned both CTH, which stands for Commercial Townhouse District, and C3, General Commercial District. C3 is this small portion along 10th Street. The applicant is proposing a rezoning to consolidate the entire site to CTH. So the Clarendon Sector Plan ultimately outlines a future vision for Clarendon as an urban village. Per the sector plan, the site is designated for residential, commercial, hotel, or mixed uses. It's also located on what is identified as the 10th Street corridor here, which calls for streetscape and crossing improvements. The The sector plan also establishes certain development standards, which are actually codified under the UCMUD zoning ordinance regulations and reflected in what is known as the UCMUD checklist. So what do I mean by UCMUD? So unlike site plans, which we're typically used to and typically have greater flexibility in terms of development standards, unified commercial / mixed use development projects, also known as UCMUDs, are processed as a use permit, but are reviewed according to development standards, as I mentioned, that are codified in the zoning ordinance. So these development standards seek to emphasize predictability and consistency in terms of the built form and streetscape design. Therefore, UCMUD projects can be considered more similar to, as shown on the right, form-based code projects, such as those in Columbia Pike neighborhoods. However, unlike those projects, UCMUDs are reviewed by the UCMUD Review Committee, which is comprised of members of the Site Plan Review Committee. So this here is a snapshot of the UCMUD checklist for projects specifically in Clarendon. And this outlines those codified development standards for things such as density and use, placement and orientation, streetscape, etc. So using this checklist, staff will be reviewing the project's compliance with these specific development standards. And just to note, here's an image of a different UCMUD project, a residential project in Clarendon, which is actually the neighboring 10 at Clarendon apartment building. And that was done in 2014. So to kick things off with the UCMUD checklist, in terms of density and use, the project is compliant with the checklist for a commercial maximum base density of 1.5 FAR. The applicant is requesting additional density beyond the base, as I will discuss later on. But here is an exhibit of the ground floor plan showing the self-storage space in blue and then the retail spaces in yellow, with the pedestrian entrances located along 10th Street. There are also two surface parking areas, one located off of Irving and then one directly off the alley. And then to the rear of the site, we have an above grade transformer, and there is this red dashed line here, kind of symbolizing the outline of the building above the ground floor. So this kind of means the two parking areas are partially covered by the rest of the building. So moving on to building placement, while the project is cited to the build-to line per the UCMUD checklist, in addition, the facade is located at the back of the streetscape for at least 75% on 10th Street. This is not the case for Irving Street. So as you can see on this corner here, so Irving is the street and then 10th Street straight across. The project includes a 12-foot setback from this red line, which represents the build-to line per the sector plan. This is also depicted in this rendering at the corner. So basically, it's required that the building actually extend out toward this line on Irving Street, just at this street corner. But lastly, in terms of screening, the project is compliant with the requirement for a six-foot masonry wall that runs along the rear property line. So the project is compliant with the building height standards at 55 feet and 5 stories with a 5-foot mechanical penthouse. In comparison, the 10 at Clarendon apartment building directly to the east is also 55 feet tall. And shown here in this building section is the Clarendon 3131 condo building, which is approximately 40 feet tall. So compared to the proposed facility, and the distance between the proposal and the condo building is approximately 41 feet. The project also meets the standards for ground floor frontage, including for height, transparency requirements, and the location of retail entrances on 10th Street. So this is kind of the main north elevation, so the 10th Street facade. Architecturally, the building consists of tan and dark brown brick base with some stucco banding and metal canopies framing the storefronts. And then we have the upper facades, which consist primarily of white and gray wall panels with opaque window glazing. The proposed streetscape design is also compliant as it incorporates the required street lighting, street furniture, as well as the recommended streetscape widths of 14 feet on 10th Street and at least 12 feet on Irving Street. And this is just a rendering of the street environment on 10th Street. In terms of transportation, the site is served by several multimodal options, including bus stops on 10th Street. It's also a 7-minute walk from the Clarendon Metro Station up here. So the master transportation plan identifies 10th Street as a type A, primarily retail-oriented mixed-use arterial. Meanwhile, Irving Street is identified as a residential or commercial local neighborhood street. And just as previously mentioned, the site is located on the 10th Street corridor per the sector plan, which recommends wide sidewalks, curb extensions, and a landscape median with pedestrian crossing refuge islands. So the project includes both street and streetscape improvements. So on 10th Street, the street configuration remains relatively the same, but the streetscape will be expanded to include an 8-foot sidewalk, 6-foot landscape strip, and a 0.7-foot step-out band right up against the building. Then on Irving Street, one of the parking lanes directly adjacent to the site will be converted into a fire lane to provide aerial access, and then the streetscape will be slightly increased to accommodate a 6-foot sidewalk and 6-foot landscape strip. They are also proposing curb extensions at this intersection on both sides of the street. And then lastly, in terms of the public alley, this will also be slightly expanded by about 8.5 feet. So on this side. In terms of parking, the location of the parking and the loading is compliant with the UCMUD checklist with access from the frontages designated service in the sector plan. So here we have these orange arrows, which represent the vehicular access from Irving Street and then the vehicular access from the alley into those parking spaces. This purple arrow indicates the loading access. And then we also have a bike room at the rear of the site. In terms of the parking tabulations, the applicant is providing 11 parking spaces for storage and storage customers and 10 retail spaces, which actually meets the requirements of the zoning ordinance. So they aren't currently asking for a modification. The project includes the 2 loading spaces for storage and 1 loading space for retail. In terms of parking screening, which is specifically outlined in the UCMUD checklist, again, they also meet their requirements there. The applicant plans to keep the existing masonry wall both along Irving Street, so this short section here, and then also all along the rear property line, which is there today. So this is kind of what it looks like with the existing building here. There's also this 5-foot landscape setback between the wall and the start of the surface parking, kind of similar to what is there today. In terms of landscaping, the site again meets the UCMUD checklist with 12.6% of the total site landscaped. The project includes 9 new trees on site, which contributes to a tree canopy coverage of 14%. There are also 7 new street trees being planted and a 350 square foot bio retention area at the rear of the site here. And then lastly, while the UCMUD regulation does offer several options to achieve bonus density, As shown here, the applicant is proposing to achieve bonus density just through the provision of affordable housing only. So this first row here, pursuant to the UCMUD regulations, the county board may permit up to 1.5 FAR of bonus density for the provision of affordable housing or an equivalent cash contribution to AHIV. But since they are requesting 1.78 FAR in bonus density, they are not consistent with the checklist. However, they are requesting a modification here for that additional density above this 1.5 FAR bonus max. I did want to still touch on sustainable design and historic preservation. So in terms of sustainable design, the applicant is not participating in the county's green building incentive policy, nor are they pursuing green building certification. Meanwhile, for historic preservation, the site is not identified as such in either the Clarendon sector plan or the historic resources inventory. And to conclude, in terms of timeline, tonight's UCMUD review committee meeting will be followed by the various commission meetings and the county board, which is anticipated this winter. So that concludes staff's presentation.
Okay, Mr. Justin Yap is going to give our presentation. I would have elaborated on anything that Kevin said if I thought I needed to. That was thorough. Thank you.
Appreciate it. Thanks again for your time. So Justin Yap with the Lockup Self-Storage. We're a Chicago-based company who've been in self-storage space for nearly 50 years. Bob Sudan has been a part of the business for about 35 of those, and I've been around for about the last decade. So it's been something that we've done for quite some time. And it is the only thing that we do is our business. So we develop self-storage around the country, currently own and operate 50 facilities across 9 states. And we look forward to presenting about an opportunity that we think fits within Arlington County. Next slide. Thank you. So you can breeze through the front section pretty quick, Kevin, because ultimately he did a phenomenal job walking through where this site is within the context of Arlington. And given that all of you are local, you know where this site is at the corner of Ashton Heights, Lyon Park, Clarendon Courthouse, and Ballston. We've had a phenomenal opportunity to speak with both the civic associations at Lyon Park and Ashton Heights over the past few months. So we were welcomed and enjoyed the dialogue we had with them. As you can see, we are at the southeast corner of 10th Street North and North Irving Street. We'll get into this in a little bit, but part of the reason we felt self-storage would be a great opportunity here is not only the amount of residents and businesses that operate within Arlington, call it the density in the area, but also with what's to come, especially northwest of this site with additional density in the form of residential, retail, and hotel. Self-storage is a relatively quiet neighbor. So we look forward to delivering what we think is a great looking building, but is a good complement to what is happening in this immediate section of the 10th Street North Corridor. Next slide, please. So I'll take a second to pause here. There's a lot of words on the screen, but the reason that we felt self-storage would be appropriate in this location. So within the context of our business, we generally attract a majority of residents. So in this location, call it 80% of residents and 20% of businesses that we expect to utilize this facility. And how is that done? If you haven't used self-storage before, the biggest survey responses we get about who uses self-storage are residents as an extension of their home, whether they're undergoing a change in family, whether family's growing, or their movement within transition, or they're renovating a kitchen or a new bedroom. In addition to that, facilitating life change. So whether you're a student who's on summer break and to store your dormitory or apartment goods for the summer while you're out of town, or a government employee who was at the State Department who's going to go overseas for a couple of years but wants to return to the area when that duty is completed. Those are the types of users that we see that utilize our facilities around the country. As it relates to the tenancy in terms of geography, a large majority of our customers come from within 2 miles, especially in an area like this where it's very dense. So it is your neighbors who will be utilizing this facility on a semi-annual or quarterly basis, depending on how often they come to visit. And from a business point of view, given again the more infill nature of what Arlington is, whether it's a restaurant, medical sales rep, or any rep in that matter who has inventory, a lot of businesses utilize self-storage as a way to move around and facilitate more convenient operations. So again, we find ourselves to be an amenity to users and businesses alike in the area. And then specific to this location, around the country, from a self-storage point of view, demand utilization is 7 square feet per capita, or 7 square feet per person. Within 2 miles of this location, it's noted there are 0.9 square feet per person. And upon our facility being added to that total, that number will go to, I believe it's 1.2 or 1.3 square feet per person. So it's an opportunity that we, again, felt long-term would be well utilized. Feel free to go to the next slide, Kevin. Thank you. So Kevin touched on this again, but just for some additional context, the existing building on site was the NAFCU, National Association of Credit Unions office building until the end of 2024. They merged with another credit union, I believe based in Wisconsin, and rendered this building fully vacant as of year end. And as Kevin touched on, you see the existing conditions of the streetscape along 10th Street North. On the bottom left picture there with above ground utility poles, a very narrow sidewalk, and no tree canopy. And along North Irving Street, the masonry wall, that screens the parking that currently sits there. So those are just some of the current existing conditions that we are looking to improve on as we pursue our redevelopment. So getting into that, the next slide is that rendered site plan. So again, I won't delve too much into this because Kevin covered it very well in his summary, but you see the footprint of the first floor depicted there with the outline of the building above, and the tree line along 10th Street North, as well as North Irving Street. So those street trees are all new to this area. And again, the next 2 slides are just renderings that you've already seen. The goal of this design, and our architect is also here remotely on the Teams call, but we went through numerous iterations about how we thought we could design a building that we would be not only proud to own and operate long-term, but would fit in the context of what's happening along this corridor from a redevelopment perspective. So I'll take this opportunity to also say that we as self-storage developers, owners, and operators will look to operate this facility for 50 plus years. We've, again, started in 1976. We've never opened a facility that either closed or was repurposed into another use. It's been self-storage from day one and through. And that's in part because of our long-term vision for facilities like this, but also our partnership. We're partnered with the U.S. State Pension Fund. We've been partners with for about 20 years now. And so our shared vision is to deliver facilities like this and own them and operate them for the long term. Let's get to the next one too, sorry. Thanks. So again, first floor, we touched on this earlier, retail along the 10th Street frontage, and along with our self-storage office in the top right corner there, parking loading in the rear and off of the alley. This gives you a perfect example of self-storage being a nascent use. This is the floor plan for floors 2 through 5. So just lots of self-storage units with an elevator bank and 2 stairwells. So if you ever need to see what self-storage floors look like from above, you have it. So getting into transportation, and Felice behind me will be the expert here ultimately, but we've operated these facilities for quite some time, and we can confidently say that self-storage as a commercial real estate use is incredibly low traffic and low impact. That's again in part because the users of these facilities generally do not visit every day. I'm sure there will be some that do, but the large majority of customers will show up and not see their goods for a few months from time to time. And as we step through that, the parking, the loading, and everything that we've designed does meet the zoning ordinance as called for. And as we review the Clarendon sector plan, working with Bowler and Carlos sitting behind me, we again are working to meet the streetscape requirements, the widening the curb extension and that sidewalk there. But it's worth noting that there's not the need for traffic signal called out as the sector plan is delineated today. And then as it relates to sustainability and green building initiatives. So I'll touch on this a little bit before diving into the building specific aspects, but self-storage is a use from a high level, it just does not get much throughput. Again, 93% of this building is going to be visited very intermittently. The doors don't open and close that often. the temperatures that get set in the building are at higher temperatures during the summertime or lower temperatures in the wintertime. So relatively speaking, more efficient than you get from an office or a residential building. And again, because of the way some of the green building initiatives work, it's dictated upon usage and other impacts that residential buildings have or office buildings have. Self-storage just doesn't experience that type of impact. So diving in, I just touched on the temperature control that we experience in our building. That's just one aspect of how we're efficient relative to other uses. But with lighting and water usage, if you can imagine us getting off on the third floor of our building, the lights will pop on with LED lighting in hallways and as you enter the floor. But once you're done and you return down to the first floor, those lights will turn off after about 10 minutes of time. So if, said another way, if no one enters the third floor across a day, those lights will never turn on, as opposed to, again, a residential use or an office use where those lights will generally be on all day. So it's just a relative point of view as to why self-storage is efficient, but is challenged when it comes to some of these green building programs and how you quote unquote score points on a scorecard.
If you missed it earlier too, those windows above the first floor are not real windows. So there's few sort of penetration points, right, where you're looking at additional insulation or anything. If anything, the building's buttoned up beyond what folks would dream of for a residential building. Be highly energy efficient.
What?
Yeah. So, and then to wrap up on this slide, we do remain in conversations with staff as well as folks on the Green Building Commission on ways that we can vet and operate things, whether that be solar or things like that, things that we can further discuss with them as to how to meet the goals that for sustainability the county has.
Just making dinner.
And then community benefits. This slide really just wraps up a lot of what we've discussed in both Kevin's materials, as well as what we touched on earlier in the presentation. Again, I really do believe that the development as shown and as designed is something that could be a great add to this corridor for the streetscape, the undergrounding of utilities. I think just pedestrian experience in this corridor. Of course, we look forward to see what happens further west with Choice Motors and the Bingham Silver Diner site. But in lieu of that, we're just one step in that direction from what's happening to the east going west to connect back into Clarendon and Fairfax Drive. So with that said, Bob and I are obviously here to answer any questions as well as our team for this proposed redevelopment.
Thank you. So before, somebody's still doing stuff up there. Somebody's cleaning out their closet or something? I will ask Kevin to pull up the agenda, but before we do that, does anyone have any, these are clarifying questions, not getting into a discussion yet. Does anyone have any clarifying questions for either staff or the applicant? Kevin?
So one of the areas where you weren't aligned with the UCMUD checklist was the 12-foot setback, but you didn't address why you're not doing that. So can you talk about that?
Sure. Yeah. So it's that Irving Street corner, we're a little further set back. And I think that we thought that that could make a nice little spot for the retail, et cetera. It was just an area as we were laying out this building that we quite frankly could make clear use of and preferred to have it be additional planting. I think we got an additional tree in there.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
I can jump into, there's existing utility infrastructure as well, and with the bulb out. So, we're trying to maximize canopy and we did exceed that. So it allowed us to put an extra, I think 2 extra trees and landscape it more. So we felt, that was better because, the facility wasn't going to get any more density out of it in retrospect. So with the bulb out, it creates a dead space. And then there's a large storm main, that if you go to the landscape plan, I don't know if we have that available, you can see it better, but it kind of just inhibits tree planting there. So again, we're trying to maximize tree planting as best we can. Yeah, so the storm pipe is right here. Try and point at
I
it.
think a visual.
Yeah. You got locked into Zoom there.
So we can't put anything here, is what we're trying to get.
Yes.
Yeah. So it helped with landscape planting. It wasn't necessary for the building at this juncture, but it is not something that's like physically impossible or something to extend the building out. It's certainly something that we're listening to comment on.
Yes. Well, as long as you're talking about tree planting, am I correct that we're gaining 9 new trees, but losing 8 trees for a net gain of 1? Is that right?
What's
I
the,
think they're meeting the replacement requirements.
Right. No, I understand that. But are those right?
yeah, I mean, there are trees on site that are going to be taken down.
Okay.
Of course. Yeah. I mean, the site will have to be cleared to fully rebuild it. So.
I think from a canopy point of view, we are contributing beyond what is required for the 20-year tree canopy in the Chesapeake Bay, I think per that requirement.
The 10th Street was all new trees.
Yeah.
That we don't have any there now.
You get brownie points from me for better tree placement.
Sorry, just 2 quick clarifiers. So you mentioned reduced carbon footprint compared to existing buildings. I might have missed it, but what was the carbon footprint of the existing building when it was being used by NAC?
We were just talking about that more for the type of use, office use versus self-storage. Well, 93% self-storage and 7% retail. Retail does have a pretty good use, but self-storage on a per square foot basis is massively lower than office generally.
Right.
Because of the temperatures and the LEDs.
Right.
You know, people,
Yeah.
that's what I was talking about.
And then the next question was just with the parking areas, was there a plan to repave those areas or would they be intact while the construction was happening? How would the parking areas work?
Everything's gonna be new.
Everything would be. Okay.
Yeah, everything's new.
Do I understand correctly that the existing trees along the back wall will come out during construction, be taken down and then have to be replaced?
Yeah, so technically, per the letter of the law, they need to be shown as to be replaced, but we're actually working on, with urban forestry measures that would help them remain. From a grading perspective, they don't need to go, but if you pulled up the plans online, they are shown as to be removed. But hopefully we can keep.
If they can be kept, we're happy.
One of them's completely dead, so we will.
Need to replace
Yeah,
that.
that one will.
There's one saw outside.
Just to clarify, they are being shown as to be removed, but, we're looking at options, tree preservation measures, hopefully keep them.
I had a couple of clarifying questions. So I think it was slide 7, if I'm not mistaken, showed the crosswalk across 10th maybe being moved a few feet to the right, to the east. But some of the other diagrams sort of made it look like it was in the same place. I know there's a yellow light RFB there. Yes, this one makes it look like it's in the same place. I think if you go back to the landscape slide that we were looking at here, it looks like it's gone to the right. I was just wondering, is it moving?
So initially, when the previous slide was the acceptance submission, as we worked more with staff, they informed us that, across the street, Choice Motors is improving that. So this is the correct version here, which shows a little more to the right, and then it'll be a protected median now. So it's more safer crossing than versus the initial submission.
So Joyce is doing both their corner, right? And then I think directly across over on the Verizon side, correct? Yeah, because we got even community benefit credit for that during that. And so what'll be nice is you'll have kind of almost all 4 corners, nicely new, refreshed, and much safer.
Makes sense. You've cut out one of my comments, so perfect. And then one thing that I noticed is in the staff presentation versus your presentation, I think in the staff presentation, it said there were 4 bike spots. Here, I think you said there were 3. In the images, there looked like there were 6 to 10, a couple inside and 6 outside. I was just trying to figure out what's the right number?
Yeah, I know we added visitor racks and we have some protected bike parking that we planned for. Obviously, the number of employees in this building, even with 5,000 square feet of retail, could be very small. And so I think there's an intent that they'll maybe share a little bit of protected bike parking, but is the count still, Charles, 3?
Yeah, I believe it's 3.
Okay. So 3, and then any other spaces would be visitor racks.
Correct.
So First of all, thank you very much for coming here. We don't often see the actual business owner come to these meetings, so it really shows that you care about hearing from the community, so I appreciate that. I'm also interested, though, this is a somewhat atypical use for this neighborhood, like self-storage. I don't think of as being like activating the streetscape. So like, where does this fall in on like the use tables? Like, is storage called out in use tables? Or are we like considering like a different use? Like, oh, well, that could, self-storage could fall in here. And like, does the Clarendon sector plan think about self-storage for the spot? Because it doesn't sound like the street would be very activated.
Fair question. You know, it is a unique use. I will say in terms of like the zoning ordinance, it does specifically have definitions for self-storage, and it is allowed in CTH. So interestingly enough, the only zoning districts where it is permitted is CTH, but then also industrial districts.
Okay, so that's why they need the CTH rezoning.
Right, so they're consolidating to the CTH rezoning. At the same time, you know, the zoning ordinance does permit this use. It also, you know, outlines certain development standards for this type of use, just in order to ensure whatever development comes from this type of self-storage facility is appropriately sized, has the streetscape design, contributes to the street environment. So it does cover standards for like requiring retail on the ground floor. So the zoning ordinance does contemplate like having self-storage in CTH is a more urban area. Therefore, we do want to regulate the building form and then also the street environment. The sector plan doesn't touch on self-storage specifically, but I will also note in Clarendon, there are also 2 other self-storage facilities.
And nearby, this CTH is really the only district that permits it, other than obviously, like you said, having the industrial districts in CTH is only. And so I have been harping on this a bit, but I really think it should be kind of the site plan usage is permitted throughout wherever you would allow commercial uses generally, with the same sort of expectations with the ground floor retail like we have to activate the space,
But there's precedent in Clarendon for
and that's pretty much
self-storage.
and by operation of the zoning ordinance, really, and by only allowing it in CTH, it's almost like at some point someone chose Clarendon for all this.
Thank you.
Before I go, excuse me, I just wanted to clarify a previous comment. We actually have 4 spaces, 4 bike spaces.
Oh, thank you. Okay.
2 protected and 2 visitor spaces with the 1 rad.
Okay.
Before I go to Tony, I see we have some hands up for those folks who are online. However, our conversation at this time is for those who are members of the UCMUD. If you are not a member of the UCMUD, we would encourage you to put your name in the chat, and whether you have a question or a comment, we will leave time at the end to make sure that you are heard and hopefully even responded to as we can. So I see 3 hands there. Goodson is not, the other one is not. I see Karen, who is commissioned, she is, but, right, am I correct? Yes. So Commissioner Rivera, you can go ahead if you like.
Hi, good evening. Perhaps this is more geared towards staff than the applicant. I see that the applicant is requesting an additional 0.28 for for their affordable housing contribution. Since this building obviously can't have on-site affordable housing, is there proposed approximately $1 million contribution in line with what you would see for a commercial development? So for instance, the square foot is 6.54 per GFA. Is that along what we typically see above or right on sort of on target?
Right, so in terms of the, in order to earn that bonus density within the UCMUD zoning regulations, it actually has a formula as opposed to kind of the site plan section of the ordinance where it's not explicitly stated. So there is actually a stated formula, which is $15 per square foot, but adjusted for inflation for the amount of bonus density, which comes to around $1 million. So we don't have too much leeway in negotiating the dollar amount because it is already stated in the zoning ordinance.
I just clarify, I believe with the inflation adjustment, it's about $22.50 per square foot per bonus FAR.
Yeah.
Or bonus square foot.
And set in the zoning ordinance many years ago.
Yes, absolutely. And I see that on your presentation as well. But just because it said it that doesn't mean that the applicant has to fully abide by that, right? They could go over that contribution should they desire.
I think from staff's perspective, I think that's kind of the requirement. Obviously, they can provide more if they wished. There's other benefits they're also providing as well, but.
There are, and I'll be clear that, you know, in these situations, we don't typically contribute more than is expected or required. And also legally, the county really does sort of set a rubric for what they can ask for from applicants, and that is generally what we would do. I don't know offhand if the Affordable Housing Investment Fund allows sort of charitable contributions from anyone. It might. And certainly these are, you know, business owners in the community who may one day contribute or something, but we are sticking to the statutory expectation and requirement. And I think it would be odd, and I think that the county attorney might even have an opinion on if we attempt to offer more, but I understand the comment and I appreciate the nature of it. It's not something we would do.
Since this is the clarifying portion, I'll accept that answer, but once we get into discussion, I'd love to probe that a little further. Thank you.
Thank you, Hon. So Tony first, then Tenley, then we're going to move into the agenda.
Okay, this isn't a question, more of a comment. You know, pulling on the thread we were talking about with the use of this site, discovering that there are 2 more self-storage places conveniently down the street from this potential site here. I'm just wondering if this is the best use of the space in one of our downtown corridors. You know, given housing shortages and all these other issues we're facing on, I'm on the fence of whether this is the best use of the space when we're so close to Clarendon, the metro, you know, all of these, you know, bike facilities,
So
restaurants.
this would go in actually under density and use.
Oh, there you go.
Thank you. See.
Well, that was all I was gonna say anyway, so. Gotcha.
Yeah, hold on a second. Tenley, we really need to wrap up the clarifying questions. Tenley.
Okay, I'll go quick. Have the fire marshals okay with this, with the fire station right across the street? Like there wouldn't be an issue with like people bringing trucks or, you know, storage issues and block the fire departments?
They're part of our review group, so don't know if they have any explicit concerns related to that yet, but they are part of our review.
Adrian.
Could you please explain a little bit about, I saw the traffic and how that would go into uploading, but have you studied how pedestrians would use your space within that area? And also if you could talk about lighting and security, since you're saying there's probably not going to be a lot of traffic most of the time.
Sure. With regards to pedestrians using the facility, typically most of our customers will arrive in a vehicle because they're moving stuff, which is, you know, unless they're just carrying a box or 2, it's hard to walk with that. But they would come in through our office, our front office, and access the elevator, or they could come in if they had like a dolly or a push cart or something. They would come in through one of our alley loading areas and go right to it. And your second question was, lighting, right?
Security.
So we don't want to, you know, flood our building with uplights or anything like that, but we do want to provide security lighting around the perimeter of the backside and the sides. We were showing in our rendering that we have some lampposts that would be more decorative along 10th Street to match the existing community facade. But just enough lighting for good security. We don't want to have lights that are, in the eyes of the neighbors or something, so the lighting will be low, but just security lighting.
And then will also be cameras and CCTV around the perimeter of the facility. And then just to clarify as well, from an access point of view, there'll be a manager on site, minimum 6, maybe 7 days a week from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. And then access hours for any customers that we have would be 6 a.m. to 9 p.m. And then beyond that point, no more customers are allowed in the facility.
Thank you.
I'm going to push on to the first topic, which Tony just kind of kicked us off with, which is density and use. Are there and then probably.
I have a quick one.
That's it. So any comments or questions about density and use? I just, which I brought up when I first met with the applicant and we'll go to our DMV. For those of us who see buildings and then, we try to repurpose them if possible. And I understand this one may not, in its current state, suit that, but it's always tough to see buildings come down just to put another building up. It's not great for the environment. So that's a concern that I have. I still have it. And then also too, should this be approved and you do bring the building down, I would really, again, push, have you done any work on the comment that I brought up that some of the materials can be repurposed some places? I mean, we've started with other SPRCs where they've said, no, we haven't thought about it. In the end, one of them came back and said 75% of what we have there now will be repurposed, so we would like to hear stuff like that.
We do plan on tearing the building down, but it's a brick building, so that brick we will set the demolition contractor to save all those bricks to be sold and recycled. So they will be used somewhere, but it does not, that brick does not fit with our color scheme, or the sizing of the brick does not meet what we're gonna need. So that's our plan, is to do it that way.
Thank you. Density and use?
Yeah, I'm feeling similar to Tony that this doesn't seem like an appropriate use, like off the top, like when I first looked at it, like I saw the RL Now, news article a couple months ago. I was like, storage in Clarendon? Really? I think it's an attractive building. So I think that's nice. I'm a little worried about the street activation, since so few people do come and check on their goods regularly. Then a neighborhood that if we had residential there would always have people going in and out and would be utilizing their retail, the on-site retail. Being so close to Metro, I feel like housing is a better option here. But if nobody's offering housing at this point, it's something we'll have to think about.
Yeah, so agree with Tinley, Tony. I definitely don't think Clarendon self-storage is the best thing here. I think we need housing, especially the comment about 50 years. It's I don't know what Clarendon's going to be like in 50 years, but I'm sure we'll need more housing there. So that's a little bit of a concern of mine. Although I do think that we can develop things. If you guys are developing things and want to develop a self-storage, I'm not necessarily going to get in the way of it. I just don't think it is the best use. I'm a little bit confused about the FAR ratio number, because we said that the building height and stuff is compliant. How could they be compliant with the density, the 1.5 FAR? Obviously, I know they're getting 1.5 additional from the affordable housing contribution, but how could they get that density while still complying with, the 5 stories? Is that not contradictory?
Happy so the plan, the Clarendon sector plan really envisions bonus density by setting heights that are higher than the base density potential would yield. So the county really, it's incentive-based zoning. They're looking for you to go up to that height and then ask for bonus density and provide community benefits to earn it. In our situation, the non-compliance of the modification there is just so that we can make the greater contribution through AHIP to earn the density. That's the modification. Otherwise, we could have earned that bonus density both through AHIP or the other option with green building. we can even explain further why from, our perspective, it's very difficult to get that certification. I mean, we couldn't comply with everything in the Green Building Incentive Program. We just can't. It doesn't really work for a facility like this. But what we can do is commit to a number of energy efficiency measures because our building is very energy efficient by virtue of it. I wanted to have the opportunity. We feel strongly, and they specifically targeted an urban location for this because self-storage is complementary to residential use. Units are only getting smaller, and that is not necessarily because people love small spaces. A lot of people can work with a small space or live in one, but people are living in smaller and smaller units because rent is very high per square foot. And so folks have less and less space for all their stuff. Justin was telling you earlier how, we're about 0.9 square feet per person in this area. He's not saying, oh, we should be at 9 square feet per person in suburban Fairfax. He really does mean in urban areas as well, where they've had a lot of success with facilities like this. I fully understand. I mean, please, you guys have heard me talk about the housing crisis left and right. I am passionate about building new housing in Arlington. I really think that this is something that complements new housing and is part of that solution because, again, you have all these folks and these efficiencies, et cetera. If you even have a book collection, you might want a storage unit. And the beautiful thing about this is you can walk there or you can take the metro. So I could rent a unit at the Wendy, those are big units, but I could rent a unit, an efficiency somewhere in the RB corridor. And I have a 400 square foot apartment. I can go to my unit and get my stuff. I can change out even dishes or, clothing seasonally even because some of these units are so small and people are living in them in very kind of creative and adaptive ways. So we really work with residential in that sense. And I wanted to be clear about that it's not like we're trying to shove something in here because the land was so cheap that we can actually get a storage facility in here and it's going to look like it belongs in Chantilly. The thesis of this is an urban storage facility, and I think you'll actually see more of them.
Do you take into account the self-storage facilities in buildings? I know a lot of residential buildings now have self-storage, so is that taken into account in that 0.9?
Absolutely.
Yeah, and it's a lot of tenant storage that's in basements and stuff of buildings, basically. But again, in Arlington, I mean, you just don't have the volume of it. Part of it is that the zoning ordinance has discouraged it, which is kind of silly, especially when we're in the midst of commercial market resiliency efforts.
I've seen site plans recently that have self-storage in them. And so I don't know how that's discouraging them necessarily because I've seen it come through, but
yeah, tenant storage in a building. I mean, I would distinguish that, but
the demand will be massively beyond.
Thanks.
Okay, hold on a second. I want to call on Jamie Goodson. It turns out that they are with the neighboring condo building. So Jamie, go ahead, please. Sorry about that. We had to thank you for the email to clarify that for us. So go ahead.
I'm glad you got it that quickly. Thank you. Yes, I am the secretary of 3131 Clarendon, a condominium that immediately faces the former NAFQ building. And my clarifying question had to do with understanding how close to the current wall the proposed development would come and whether that requires a variance. It would be great if you could turn to the truck turning exhibit. That's something that shows both the current condo and it has a bunch of lines, and I don't want to assume that the line that comes closest to the condo would be the edge of the new development, but I want to just clarify that.
Okay.
I'm gonna hold the exhibit up.
Hold on a second.
So there's this exhibit here kind of showing the condos in relation to the building, but you also mentioned the truck turning exhibit. Would that be
That's the one I'm looking at. That would be really helpful, actually.
And architect, sorry, Jeremy Hall is also on the line.
Our architect is on the line, maybe.
The setback, the setback question to the rear.
So is this the truck turning exhibit?
It's some of them. The one right before it would be perfect. It's a little bigger. Yeah. Okay, so are the black lines that come closest, basically, would the building go all the way to where the current wall is? Where the trees are?
You see the 4 black dots?
Yes.
That dashed line would be the building face.
And my question is, does it require a variance to come that much closer to the condo than the NAFQ building does now?
No.
It is not.
It's also in the same location. If you can see the building right under.
Oh, okay, I must not be seeing the same line because, okay, I can wait till the comment section. I want to ask about the wind tunnel effect and whether that's part of the consideration with the extreme wind that we already get and whether building out further would.
Jamie, you can ask that
exacerbate
now if you'd like.
Okay, yes. And I'll confess, I'm not exactly sure with the line with the dots to me does not seem to be where the current building goes. So I guess I'm questioning the statement that it's the same as it is now. Did I misunderstand?
Yeah, so that's a satellite image that the design is layered over. And so that is the existing building you're looking at in the gray there.
No, I'm looking at the existing building and the roof has like basically two kind of, basically the trees. The building is not where the trees are. And I'm asking, will the future building be come out to where the trees are, or will it stop where the current building is?
Stops where the current building is.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Commissioner Guevara.
Hi, I'd like to associate myself with the comments that my fellow commissioners were indicating about the land use of this site and potentially, particularly the point about there being there for 50 years and what that means as our sort of population grows and different trends emerge. You know, when it comes to office occupancy rate is really high now, and perhaps who knows what the future holds. How difficult would it be, or have you had projects in the past where you have turned one of your properties into sort of residential units just to see, hey, what flexibility and what would be the art of the possible? If, let's say, this is an adequate, we find that this is an adequate use now, but perhaps in the future we may need to modify.
So yeah, this building is going to be a specially engineered building for our use, and getting the certain floor loads and columns in the places they are. So this will be a self-storage use building, and it would be extremely difficult to repurpose this building in the future. But again, we would say that you know, the more housing that evolves in this greater neighborhood, the more there's going to be a need for this use. I mean, this is a necessary component, just like dry cleaners and restaurants and things like that. It is part of urban residential life, is to have some self-storage. Not everyone uses it, but the demand here shows it's going to be needed. But yes, unfortunately, the building would be difficult, if not impossible, to repurpose.
Any other comments? And I'm sorry, Commissioner Rivera, were you done? Were you finished?
Oh, I just said, okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah.
Actually, well-placed question. You asked one of mine, Commissioner. Thank you for that. Regarding the demand, that was an interesting point you brought up. And I guess I'm just curious, are people like busting down doors to get more self-storage units? I wasn't necessarily aware that the demand, because you did cite the figures of like the per capita amount of storage space being lower than most other places, but I guess, does that necessarily translate to people are absolutely trying to store their comic book collections in spaces? Right?
So we run 50 stores. I've been involved in the development of 80 stores. If I could build 3 of them here, they would all fill up. There's that much pent up demand that we've understood in being in this business for a long time. There's a lot of pent up demand here. So there's plenty of customers. As Justin mentioned, we've been doing this now for 50 years with our first one in 1976, which didn't look quite as nice as this one. It was the 3rd one in the state of Illinois, but it's evolved and we've never had one be repurposed into a different use.
I'll harness the spirit too of the county manager very briefly. Obviously, the building's going to pay real estate taxes, probably more than the current vacant office building is, which I think is zero. And without generating a student population or other demand on county services, this is a very, very welcome addition to the county budget, which is obviously in crisis. You know, it's a fact of life that they're looking for more economic investment in Arlington, not just housing, which is critically important right now, but we're also dealing with office vacancy, which then is swirling down the drain, our ability to sustain a budget with commercial tax base instead of putting that pressure back on really the neighborhoods and single family home owners, anything else.
Thanks for that. Well, just, sorry, one other quick follow-up comment. Are there any plans to use the rooftop spaces for anything other than just like heating and cooling? Is there, have you guys explored the viability of like a rooftop PV array? Sorry, I'm on climate commission. Like a rooftop PV array or some sort of maybe like green space on the roof to maybe minimize water runoff associated with that? Is there?
So in terms of initial investigations to rooftop PV, that is something we are currently investigating as it relates to this parcel. In terms of green roof initiatives, I don't think we found it to be viable given the load and what we've spec'd for on the site plan.
Yeah, it's probably gonna be better for them to do PV or rooftop solar than green roof, because the bioretention will handle requirements.
And then just the bioretention, that is not something that's currently at the site, correct? That's something that's going to be added. Okay.
Commissioner Rivera, do you still have your hand up? Another comment?
Oh, I actually didn't, but I actually do have now that you called. As my commissioner from E2C2 sort of reminded me by his comments, it's sort of, I think it's interesting to me, and also going back to what Commissioner Baxley mentioned about whether we could reuse the materials. And it seems incredibly, I wouldn't say wasteful, but concerning to me that this building couldn't potentially be used in the future for residential, that it would essentially need to be a new building altogether. I'm just thinking more for an environmental impact. I'm not sure if you quite have an answer to that because I haven't asked a question, but it's more of a comment and consideration from my end. Thank you.
Thank you. We are going to push on to the next topic. I think it's safe to go now. And that would be building placement.
Yeah, when it comes to the 12-foot buffer area with the little green space, are there any staff objections to that deviation? I kind of like it personally.
We're reviewing it against what is stated in the sector plan. It currently is a deviation. I think the intent of it is to kind of hold that building corner in order to make it more pedestrian friendly. That's not the only way to make a space pedestrian friendly.
Right.
With the ground floor being retail, it could be, say, an outdoor patio. It could be landscaping. So we are currently looking at the intent of it and different ways of achieving it. So we haven't kind of made our formal recommendation yet, but it is something we're looking at.
Yeah, because I think if it's not really usable for any of the purposes you want, to me personally, I don't see it as detracting from the pedestrian experience.
So Tony, we're definitely looking at it because one of the other comments that staff had is they want the loading dock enclosed. And so we've been looking at that. And if we are able to do that, which I think we might be able to, it could involve then making up for lost GFA by closing that corner and then bringing it out to the building.
I'm saying I don't mind the corner.
I know, and that's why I wanted to bring that up, because if we make that change, then I just want to be clear that that would probably be the sacrifice for closing the dock. And so we're looking at that. We wanted to collect everyone's feedback and make changes at one time. Just it's a lot easier to do it that way. But that's a change we could make. There's a trade-off, but it would also come with closing the dock, which can look a little bit nicer for people.
Yeah, so I just wanted to also say, I'm comfortable if we do feel like that space is activating the streetscape with like maybe biophilia, some tables, if there's, a restaurant down there. But with an UCMUD, can we include like site plan conditions, like you are required to have tables and chairs out there that support the businesses? Or can we not do that and we would just trust the, good faith efforts that you guys would follow
I
through with
think
that?
a better way is to incorporate it into the plans themselves and instead of a condition. But, if it is in the plans, we will need to see it there. So that's the other way of kind of enforcing the idea of activation through like tables and chairs. You can kind of call that out in the plans itself.
So I think what I'm hearing too is that, if that stays like that, that you're looking for some really thoughtful activation there that would be required. But again, if we end up enclosing it, then we're compliant at least, so,
Win-win.
But a nice kind of like activation, like the trees.
Yeah.
Commissioner Rivera? Did you have a comment, hon?
No, I actually don't have my hand up, but maybe for some reason it's showing that way.
So that's fine. I'll just keep you on radar, okay?
You guys were talking about the roof and having vegetation there. There's a building in DC and it escapes me where it's mostly warehouse and commercial space, but then the roof becomes completely activated at night with a bar, concerts, things like that. You would have to have a separate access just for that, obviously, but because this is an area that's very, very diverse, that might be something to look at.
I would support those same comments that they had. I think the build to line being back is okay. I don't have a major gripe with that or anything. Also totally supportive of it being there and you guys using it for living Zoom. Sounds great. Again, if it is brought back, I would rather see something for pedestrian activation to make it feel, trying to meet the goal of the build to line, right? Which is by activating an active pedestrian area, so. Yeah. Excellent.
incredibly helpful feedback, actually. Thank you.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's okay. I'm new, so I'm still trying to figure all of this out, but I feel like it's. I'm sorry. You're still figuring it out too. All right. So like to me, it seems like it's a confusing building because during the day, it looks like something and it looks like an apartment building. What does it look like at night? Is there a lighting scheme that, like a night rendering, something that we can see the difference between nighttime and daytime?
Yeah, the guys can speak to this more, but I've heard them speak to it at multiple civic association meetings so far. But the lighting at night would be the sort of minimal safety lighting that you need just to ensure that, the street is lit, lots of new street lamps, et cetera. But it's not a building that they're looking to uplight or advertise or anything. It really is meant to look like an apartment building.
And the glass that you see is spandrel glass, which means it's darkened.
Oh,
So
I know what
there's
that
no
is.
light. Yeah, okay. There's no light coming through.
Yeah. So to me, that's a very confusing building because it looks like an apartment. I want to live there and then I can't.
You can store yourself. Self-storage.
So,
That was the goal.
So then I have another quick question about that, because in Alexandria, I almost rented a place that had storage plus office, kind of, not office, but it was like one of those mixed things. So you actually had a window. So I don't know if that is anything that you guys knew.
No, it's all.
Let's say spot.
It's like, well, because, say you want to live in your storage unit. Because, like in LA, people do that all the time. There are all these talk about mixed use. And so I'm just wondering if those windows for some of the units can actually be windows so that somebody can have a desk. I know it sounds crazy, but I'm just, because if they do it in Alexandria, so I don't know.
No, that's not our business model, so it won't be that.
So we are blinding. That was my question.
All righty, so I think it's safe to move on now to building height. Any questions, comments, concerns on building height? Okay, and we've already discussed a lot of this, but let's see, are there any other comments on ground floor frontage?
What retail is going there? Do we know?
Because it's gonna take a while to get the building completed and fully constructed, it's too early to go to market on that. So we just don't know, but we are hoping for something that'll bring traffic as well.
And when you say that, are you hoping maybe like because I know a restaurant space is different from like a storefront space, right? There's different interior. So are you gonna have potentially the way, like, you know, would it be usable as a restaurant or would it be specifically a retail space? Do you?
We are gonna prep the space, so in case someone needs like exhaust hood amenity, we'll be prepped for that. But again, we just don't know what the
Ideally,
bring.
everybody is able to break ground across the street, right? And the neighborhood continues to evolve in a great way as an approved plan. And then you'll have a couple thousand new residents who would be patronizing, hopefully, a really cool neighborhood shop. There's not a ton of retail in the Bingham and
Yes.
either. I mean, there's some, but it's not, you know, because it's not like an intense retail corridor. So that's not an opportunity.
Up the street, there's a cafe or something, but that's the only thing I can think of there.
Yeah, and just to be clear too, the footprint this building is shown, I think, yeah, Jeremy, our architect, has 3 doors in the plan, but we'll meet the market. You know, again, if there's restaurant users or cafe users that want, our space can be demised in certain ways that accommodate that. Or lifestyle use like salon tenant or a spa tenant, something like that.
Thanks. Do you guys know anything about the intended use of the used car lot to the north? And what kind of coordination you might want to do with something in the future there?
Which, are we talking like north, well, not Joyce Waters, this was a used car lot, but the one directly adjacent.
Yeah.
I feel like I've looked at it before, but I don't know. I don't know what's going on with that. I wouldn't be surprised if virtually anybody with a piece of property in this area has at least looked at selling it in the last 10 years, but it hasn't moved yet.
I have a stretch comment here on, I want to associate myself with your comments on the building design. It being a little confusing because when I first saw this, I thought, oh, this is interesting, a storage facility with an apartment on top. And it's
Or on the side.
yeah, right. So I want to associate myself there because it looks really good, but it also looks like an apartment building. So it's kind of threw me a little bit.
But I wouldn't want it to look like a traditional storage facility.
Right. No, it looks good, and that's
So what's the,
again, I'm torn. I'm so torn.
Exact. I mean, again, it was our exact intention to do that. I'm so happy that we accomplished it.
Right, you fooled me.
Yeah, I suppose originally the zoning was, it needs to look like a townhouse, so that we kind of started from that basis. Like, but a townhouse in the definition, the zoning definitions, looks like an old row house with a gable top. And so a little bit quaint for this area, so we said, let's make it look more like the apartment building directly to the east.
Part of this too, and I can say a big thank you to staff because they were actually really helpful as we were like doing due diligence on this and looking into this site. We originally were looking at it would really have been under the zoning ordinance as defined and as presented. It would just be a use permit that you go in, and that's like a minor amendment. You go 2-3 months, maybe 4 months of review, and then a by right building with a use permit just for the use. That's really how I think some of the other facilities have been approved in the past, which would mean a very different streetscape because you can't modify anything with the by right building, no affordable housing contribution, et cetera, et cetera. We worked with staff and they were saying, well, wait, you can use an UCMUD in Clarendon. That is a use permit approval. Would you guys be willing to do that, understanding that you have to earn density, et cetera? So we were like, well, you know, we could then not have to make it look like a townhouse. It could look like the building next door, which is what we prefer. We did have to then make the $1 million contribution and some other, you know, moves with underground utilities, which is expensive. You know, certainly the streetscape looks different and is a bigger investment. They were able to do that. It's probably one reason we can't make a bigger affordable housing contribution is quite frankly, we did kind of run up against, you know, budget constraints like everything does. But we worked hard with staff to kind of figure out the vehicle for approving this. And again, we are hampered in this big picture by not being a site plan use because everything you're used to isn't applicable here. And long term, because this is something that's in demand and it could be great investment in the county, it should be a site plan use that's permitted more places where the board can say, you know, it doesn't here, it doesn't. But it would have originally been a by right project.
Yeah.
And it could be legally.
Just to follow up on what you said real quick too, there's a building in Navy Yard in DC. I think it's a Pepco substation, I think, and it's hidden underneath this very normal looking facade.
Not by the ballpark?
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's like right across from Audi Field, and but to go to your point, like it blends in with the aesthetic of the neighborhood, and it doesn't clash with anything. And so that's just reminding me of when you were slighting it.
Okay.
Moving on to streetscape. I know some of this has been discussed already. Any other comments, concerns? Yes.
But really just a question. I noticed that the, one of the benefits is we're getting a more modern sidewalk along 10th Street, a 6-foot sidewalk. But there's also a consequent reduction in the landscape portion. And so I guess my question is, in terms of the plantings along that streetscape, what are your plans? Have you thought about it?
We have. It's preliminary at this stage, I'll repeat, but as Carlos sort of thinks through, like, even with an AquaMUD, it's very simple site plan for obviously. Landscape plan later, et cetera. I mean, there's gonna be final choices made later, but we
Yeah, I mean, for the frontage requirements, we have, the correct amount of trees, they're adequately spaced, it's all been reviewed by our forestry. Have adequate soil volumes, even with the reduction in tree pit.
Species though, of the plants and whatnot. I mean, for the trees,
It's whatever forestry required, as for.
so we're basically
more strict.
But it's just the trees though. You're not putting any shrubs or bushes, flowers, none of that stuff.
I mean, we have some.
No, there is, there's lower level planting.
Okay.
Yeah. We always try to do natives, and certainly staff pushes in that direction. We're very used to this discussion, and everyone has generally been open to that, and I'm sure aware of a cost or other prohibitive reason we can't do those things.
Okay, moving on to parking. Comments, concerns, questions? Yes.
Yeah, for transportation and parking, first, I think the improvements in the sidewalk, like widening them is really great. I think moving the crosswalk across 10th a little bit to the east is also great, having that median, so really appreciate that. I think I think regarding the crosswalk, especially as you're moving off like 10th Street is like, a lot of fast traffic and so on. I think if there's an opportunity for like a raised crosswalk on the Irving crossing, I think just like indicating there's like a change in, for residential to semi-highway arterial. So I think that would be, great as well. I think just from like the long-term approach. I think in terms of parking, a couple of comments there. I don't think you're having any pickup drop off, right? It's all going to be like, I know there's a street parking in front. If there's an opportunity to turn that 2-hour parking, which I believe is what it is right now, to like 20-minute parking, because 2-hour parking in Arlington becomes week-long parking. And then people end up like, delivery drivers or whatever, like people picking up, they end up taking that road. You end up having people like drivers like coming around, makes the pedestrian experience like much more dangerous. So I think if there's an opportunity for pickup drop off, clearly marked, would improve everyone's experience, including the businesses. They'd be able to get, people coming in and out. And then I noticed in your presentation on slide 13, you had a kind of call out saying that you wanted the parking ratio to be lower, but like the requirements, like keep it that high. I'm with you with the area and like everything that you've talked about, like 21 to 25 spots, something like that you had, like seems, quite high. I think if there's an opportunity to like extend the retail, maybe even extend the storage, like have it more like activated versus like, hidden parking as well. Like,
well, having built a lot of these and are running 50 of these things, the parking it's probably a tiny bit over parked for our use. We do think we end up the retail, which is 7% of the building. We're not sure what the exact demand it's going to be, but it's likely to be more pedestrian in nature, given the nearby housing and whatnot. So we do feel it's probably more spaces than we need right now.
Yeah. As we solve the final puzzle of exactly how we're gonna lay this out, as we've taken your feedback and work with staff on it, we may lose a few spaces, but it's good to know that you would support us in that. I assume that most would, given the location.
I just noticed something. There is an opportunity in this site to potentially have the 2 parking spots connected. I know that you would have to probably relocate the is it an AC unit or something behind the building? I know there's like a
Transformer.
transformer, that might be an issue, but because of the congestion and because of, I can just see, I know you're thinking that it's, you know, there's not gonna be a lot of traffic, but I can see when people bring in their things, it's gonna be huge and it's gonna be, so it might be worth
Yeah.
visiting when.
We did a number of iterations. Actually, the first like 7 designs of the probably 20 or 25 we've done had that connection, but indeed, we coveted the green space back there. I think that was key to make sure we hit.
Biophilic
I like that.
minimum, yeah.
Sorry.
No,
I don't have the.
It's tough to fit everything on a site,
It
let's put
really
it that way,
but, and we ended up not seeing the absolute necessity for that. There's enough room to turn around.
you end up making lots of trade-offs, because it's
Yeah.
not, never be perfect.
Okay, oh, go ahead.
Also support reducing the parking spaces.
Okay.
We won't tell the rest of the civic association.
Probably we don't. We were very unhappy with the Joyce site, allocating only 4 parking spaces to its retail. And if there is a restaurant there, it will call for parking. So I'm pretty clear that Ashland Heights is against lowering the amount of parking.
Thank you. Is there any electric vehicle charging?
It's one of the considerations we've been discussing with staff to help meet the green building goals of the county.
Yeah.
So it's certainly something that, we ran in discussions. As Nick alluded to, put in the final piece of this puzzle together and incorporating everyone's comments, that is a consideration.
Okay, and we like to see it on the planning commission, and I imagine if you have extra spots that you're required to have, you could even have like some charging stations that are available to the neighborhood.
Yeah, look into that.
Yeah, we might be able to. Better do that. To reiterate too, we weren't able to comply with the GBIP. There were just things that are not gonna ever happen for this use, but we will be looking at what from the GBIP can we commit to specifically, and there are things, certainly this building we can do, and that may be well.
Also, I'm sorry, if you could think about, if you can think about short-term parking, because now after the pandemic, what we're seeing is a lot of Uber drivers just parking wherever it's convenient, and that essentially affects the whole neighborhood. So that might be something to look at.
Yeah, okay.
And I'll actually comment on that too, kind of also revisiting the earlier comments about the short-term parking. That is county right away. So like, even if it isn't designated short-term now, that's something the county can still revisit later. And we're doing a better job at collecting parking data. We've got the parking sensors that we're starting to install throughout the corridor. I was trying to pull that up into the app for it. It's a little finicky sometimes just to try to get that parking data. So we're trying to monitor that and try to keep a healthy turnover, because obviously we don't want people parking there for all day. It's supposed to be 2-hour parking. But we do want some use and some turnover. So that's something we're.
I think honestly, so I was going to chime in too and say, we usually in this situation would ask during permitting, we can ask staff, we would prefer it to be 20-minute parking or whatever. But with retail there, it could make a lot of sense. So I think we probably.
Yes.
I actually was probably sitting in this very chair when Civic Federation was meeting with the county manager. And he launched into a long discussion of the extent to which our streets are clogged up with many, many delivery vehicles, bringing one piece to a place and going on to one piece. And it has occurred to me that one thing that this building could do is a sort of distribution center for parcels to be consolidated and delivered into the commercial district to which this is close. So it'd be
like an Amazon drop station.
Yeah, it's sort of an adjacent business to what you guys do. And it might be something you could expand your corporate vision into. But there's a lot of there's been the other Arlington, Texas, has been experimenting with this kind of thing, as has New York City. And both of them have been very excited about it.
I've got some colleagues in the self-storage industry that I talked to who have done that and have had some varying degrees of success with that. So it'd be something we look at.
And this And as someone who has had experience with porch pirates, I would love to have a place to go.
I like that
to
term.
get my,
Yeah.
to get my packages.
Right.
Okay, so are we ready to move on to landscaping? And we kind of have cross-covered things. This is not necessarily a landscaping question, but, and I had raised this when we first met. So is spandau glass, is that bird friendly?
It is, I think I believe if we put like little dots on it, it could be bird friendly, but that's not currently contemplated. Maybe my architect could answer better than I could.
Like how reflective is it? Well, Jeremy, can you hear us?
Jeremy Hall?
All right, yeah, I can hear you. Sorry for trying to mute the mic button. Yeah, the spandrel glass can be bird safe. It just depends on it. We just have to pick the right kind of ceramic frit as well. Worst cases, it could be the glass with the dots on it on top of the spandrel as well. The big thing with bird glass, you want to make sure it's not super highly reflective and all those kind of things, so the birds don't think there's another bird inside the building. Has been our experience with it.
Definitely looks at that because
This, yes, we don't see the birds.
No, I know that, is that what you said?
there's no user in the inside, you don't have to care about that, so we'll take a look.
All right, I just don't want to see little birds dead. Okay, yes.
Landscaping question. So overall, as I said, the tree math is that we're gaining one tree. Admittedly, one of the 8 trees that losing seems to be dead. So, maybe it's 2 trees. But whatever, it's a fairly minimal gain. And the reality is because you're building to a 20-year canopy, we're going to be getting rid of some fairly mature trees and replacing with immature trees that are not going to provide any shade or traditional uses for birds and so forth. So question, I realize that you met the requirements of the sector plan, but considering you think this may be an overparked area, could you look at putting in some additional trees in the parking areas? It would have the additional benefit of breaking up that large impervious surface that we've got there.
The parking areas are largely covered areas, so there's some spots that are maybe halfway poking out from the building, but most of them are completely covered by the building. So
they're not gonna have access to the sun. Or are there any other areas on the exterior where you can put in additional trees?
I mean, it's a pretty congested site. I would like to clarify, the existing large canopy trees are primarily on 10th Street. If you look on Irving, I don't even think they're 4-inch calipers.
Yeah.
And we're providing 7 street trees.
Right.
So 2 on Irving, 5 on 10th, and then 9 additional within the site. So it's 16 trees.
Well, I realize the placement of trees is better. Putting trees on 10th Street.
Carlos was clarifying that 16 trees total.
Correct.
So I think we need to revise what we were discussing
Yeah, I
earlier,
think
what we
you
thought was
should.
a net 1 new. Do we have a plan?
If you go to this, I think it's staff, there you go. So, the ones on the backside, which was a separate question.
Right.
We are gonna try to preserve during construction, but we ultimately have to show them as replacements, per the letter of the law. Then we have another large tree that's gonna be adjacent to the transformer fire retention. Those 3 are technically not street trees because they are within the property. But, so they have to be considered on-site trees. You have the 2 on Irving and then the additional 5 on 10th. And those 5 on 10th and the 2 on Irving meet your street tree requirements based on your frontage length. So, we are also meeting, the replacement that's required for the entire removal. So, we do feel that it's pretty, robust, improvement.
Mhm. So you're saying you're gonna have a total of 16 trees? The 7th Street place plus the 9 new trees?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So sorry about the confusion on the earlier part of it.
Wouldn't the tree canopy coverage be higher than 12.5%?
We calculate tree canopy as just on site. So it doesn't include the street trees.
I will say, that's very unfair, because we still have to maintain those trees in the site plan, those are kind of our trees.
I don't think
So I just want to add to Steve's comments, and these were comments I gave you when we first met. Hopefully, and I know that you will be meeting with forestry, but it's also part of a pedestrian experience when it's 114 degrees outside to be under a shade tree. So anything you can do to add to cooling an environment that has become increasingly hot, and adding things that are native, obviously, and any place that you can put in the other landscaping, as you know, that, and just even maybe showing better pictures and stuff when you come in front of the commissions, so somebody gets a better idea of maybe what this, the deeper, what's my experience going to be right on the street kind of thing, would be helpful. Tony?
I was just gonna say, I associate myself, this is a sustainability question more so, I just associate myself with other comments throughout the night that, yes, the usage here is very low impact, but any little further, sustainability hacks, EV charging, PV array on the roof, retention, green roof, whatever combination, that always helps, especially as an area like this is offsetting, or at least the way you all are talking about it, and the way that it will go in, offsetting some of the traffic, by providing a less popular, less active area, you can further offset, emissions caused by other buildings by really gutting into that, into those emissions that you do have. So I think there's opportunities here.
So you mentioned that the building design, because it's for storage, will be like a bit more resilient or stockier than a traditional building. So with that, could you have like a pretty substantial green roof, if not like for use for a bar, but like put some trees up there? Like a lot of times when we talk about trees on the roof, people are like, oh no, the building below can't handle the tree pits needed. But maybe your building could, and that would be really cool to have like a little park up there.
Yeah, well, we won't have, none of the customers will obviously have access to the roof, other than the HVAC guy who services them. Scanner will be the only person up there. So when we build the structure of this building, it's not designed to carry much additional load like what, a big earthen system would be. So we've looked at PV as a possibility up there, but we would have to alter at great expense to get the structure more rigorous to hold something like that. And we might have a problem with a height situation, because if we had to build it down a little bit, we're pretty tight on the ceiling heights, floor to floor right now.
Just so you know, the building I was talking about, at least 50% or more is actually artificial grass that doesn't require a lot of structural compensation for it. And I think it's just because people like to feel like they're in nature, and then they have natural. Yeah. So I don't know if that helps.
Ready? Are we ready to move on to bonus density? Bonus density. Yes, Commissioner Guevara.
Yes, my hand is up this time. So I wanted to come back to the discussion we were having earlier about that, yes, you guys are meeting the minimum statutory requirements. There's nothing that precludes you to going above that. As some of my commissioners have, indicated throughout the night, we're very concerned about the land use and whether this is the most appropriate, given that it's, in the middle of Clarendon, essentially. And I think because of that sort of dynamic, it would behoove the applicant to consider making a greater contribution so that we do have more units, whether it's elsewhere or within. Again, there's nothing that precludes you. And we've had instances with other applicants and sort of analogous to a certain extent comparison where we've asked for them to dedicate 3 bedroom units towards affordable housing on site, which they weren't going to do initially. So essentially what I'm saying is that you do have the ability to do that, and would highly encourage you to have that as a serious consideration. That's all.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments on bonus density? Yes.
My impression has been that the UCMUD process doesn't really allow for or contemplate the kind of review of the use that we're sliding into here. We're sort of used to thinking about uses in site plan reviews, but is that right? Am I?
It's more formulaic. You know, we do have this checklist that we've kind of run through all the different topics. I think for this type of setting, it is kind of an open discussion amongst the committee members. So, you know, anything's fair game, but, you know, as part of staff review, we do try to focus on the checklist itself as we kind of review the project and kind of make our recommendation.
In the Civic Association, we have not thought that the use was something that was sort of open to our advocacy.
The use, I think it's a fair question amongst like kind of this type of setting in terms of like the actual zoning regulations.
They get to do it.
You know, they get to do it. That's how we're kind of reviewing it.
Okay.
Commissioner Guevara, you have another comment?
No, I don't.
That's okay. That's okay. We always love to hear from you. Having no other, you go.
I understand that you guys haven't seemed super interested in additional affordable housing contribution. I don't think, from what I have heard in the meeting today, I don't think giving away free bonus density makes the most sense, as we're not super interested in the dense use that's being proposed here. So I would like to see, I understand that you guys aren't, there's certain portions of the green building incentive program that you guys can't meet. I understand that. So I would really like to see what things you can meet in there, kind of as like a pseudo ratio or something to that, to help explain that additional density above the 1 million affordable that's getting you the 1.5 extra. I would like to see how that could be used to help make sense of the additional bonus density we're getting.
Yeah, we're absolutely doing that. So we're going to commit to some specific green building initiatives. I want to be clear, we are earning every square foot with the payment. So the payment to the Affordable Housing Investment Fund is directly tied to the square footage of bonus density requested, and we have to pay the $22 for every single square foot.
I thought it was 1.5 FAR bonus density for the 1 million that it was showing 3.28 FAR, but
Yeah.
So what's the 0.28 difference?
The 0.28 difference is going above the 1.5 FAR that is identified as the amount of density that the county board could grant in the zoning ordinance. So we're asking to be able to earn 1.78 FAR with the contribution. So that's the modification, is to allow us to max
1.5.
It did, but the county board can modify that provision, like they can modify a lot of stuff.
So they can modify it, and I'm saying give us a reason to modify it. And I think giving the reason to modify it could be some of those green building incentive program stuff. I understand that you guys are looking to do that. And I know you will provide that at some point, so that's my
situation now, and I agree.
And that's a fair question. You know, there are different options for achieving bonus density, including sustainable design. So if they technically were pursuing the green building incentive policy, they can kind of hit these two, and then they'd be compliant.
Yeah. So, and they said that they weren't going to be able to hit those, so I know that they're not getting it, but I would like to see what they are doing to hit some of those things, which might give some of the bonus density that you could have gotten from it. That's fine. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, before we go to public comment, why don't we just do any final comments kind of going around, and let's start online. So Commissioner Rivera, do you have any final comments? Feel free to share. Karen? Maybe not. Jamie, are you still there? Yes. Do you have any final comments?
I'm sorry, did you say Jamie?
Jamie, yes.
Hi, yes, my comment is, I'm sorry I misunderstood the dots in the picture, and thank you for clarifying.
It's okay, no problem. I never understand all the dots in the pictures often either.
I'm
Okay,
on
we'll
an
start-
iPhone, and so everything's small.
Thank you. We'll start down there and come around.
All right, so I know that I mentioned earlier.
Hold on just a second. I'm sorry. Commissioner Robertson, you are online too. Do you have any comments?
Nothing from me, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry if I overlooked you earlier. I didn't see that. It's a long way in this room. Okay. Okay,
No
go ahead.
worries, Nia.
Go ahead.
All my comments earlier still stand, although after hearing more discussion, I do believe that storage is compatible with a residential neighborhood like Clarendon. I do think it makes some sense. So I don't fully oppose this use. I think it is a fine place-ish for it to be. I'm not gonna go out and be like, woohoo, sorry. But I am not going to outright oppose it. I've heard rumors of one going on Wilton Boulevard, maybe that I might be a little bit more about, but I do understand the compatibility with the neighborhood, and I do understand that people want that my unit is small. I just don't buy stuff, which I wish more people would do.
Yes.
But sorry. But yeah,
They'll have enough customers either way.
that's my point. Yeah, thanks.
Oh. I can't get over the typology issue. I'm really don't like that it looks like an apartment building. I think there is a way to design a storage facility that's cool and fun and bright. So I'm really stuck on that.
Yeah, I mean, as someone who lives just a few blocks away, I think overall, in our tiny sliver of upzoned area, it's great that, we're gonna be building this out, that it's gonna be activated. So looking forward to that. I think, it fits in with the neighborhood, it fits in with the overall kind of, there's enough that you've done with this that overall support it.
Yeah, just to echo the comments that have been, really asking for additional details on what parts of the GBIP program you will be looking at stand for me as well. And then I would be really excited to see if the PV array on the top would be viable. So you gotta be, to the extent it is. I know, unfortunately, on-site renewable energy generation is very often not, economically viable, but to the extent it is, I think good use of that space up there. So thanks.
Nothing to.
I've talked enough saying.
Emily.
I just wanted to say thank you to Paula for bringing up her points. She is an architect, so I kind of defer to her advice in these matters. So yeah, please take what she's saying, consider it. Staff, you can also look at it.
I will say something in a minute, but I want to let you.
It's so funny because I actually would rather you lean in more towards residential because this area is so vibrant and what the existing building is, it's a brick building and it's a very, I don't know if traditional is the right word, but I wish that you would reuse some of the brick. I wish that I love the entry area, but I wish that the datum line at the top would follow throughout the building, maybe with a recess. And I would love to see instead of a gray, probably EFIS, I'm guessing, material, something like cedar siding or something like that.
Jamie, did you have another question before I give my final comment? Then we'll do public comment. Jamie, your hand's up.
Yes, maybe I'll wait till the comment if these are questions. Well, I'll just make a statement. First, I'll just apologize that I'm not familiar with this process, but I do think it's important that the condo have something to say. I know that there were conversations about nightlife, and I like nightlife as much as the next person. I just want to mention, as a representative of the condo, that about half of our units have children in them, and we're already dealing with the beer garden. So just to keep in mind, all four wonderful uses that are vibrant, but quiet. Thank you.
We're gonna be quiet.
It's quiet there.
And the lot's gonna go away.
So just my final comments. So when I first knew that I was going to be chairing this project, I did go to your website and I looked up all of your other properties, and there is a lot more vibrant kind of architecture in some of those places that are in very dense urban environments. When I first saw the architecture on this, as I expressed in our meeting initially, although I appreciated the nod to the close by apartments, I wasn't really sold on the look. But I will say that it certainly does appear as though you run a very professional company, and we appreciate that. And, should this go through, welcome to the DMV, because this would be your first intro. You got a real snippet tonight of what you're going to face when you go to all the commissions, because there are a lot of stakeholders here and a lot of folks who care, deeply about their community and all the things that we want this to be. You're in 50 years. Some of us in the room ain't going to be here in 50 years. So, we take that very seriously. So, I do hope that all the comments that have been made tonight, I know, as you know, Nick, you can't ever please everybody in the room, but that, you can take second looks and things like that, because these will not be the only people that will be asking these things. So on that note, we do have 2 public commenters and 3 now. Okay, very good. So the first one, and we're going to give you 3 minutes because everybody has been so good about conversation tonight. So the first speaker is Christopher Ash. Christopher, you got 3 minutes. Go for it.
Great, I'll work the clock. First of all, I am not representing the Department of Commerce. I can't turn that off. I want to be clear about that so our secretary doesn't fire me. I live at North Irving Street, down the street. We appreciated the fact that the builder came and spoke to the Lion Park Community Association. Just to let you know, we had a meeting at Lion Park last week. We're the other half of Irving Street and intend to provide something related to our objection to the parking at the Planning Commission meeting. That's what I'd like to focus on. It is not a safe intersection on 10th and North Irving. We've got the used car dealership across the street, which has trucks coming and going, people pulling in, zero parking enforcement. We do not want to see more trucks, more cars coming in and out. The developer came and spoke to us and said it'll be low use based on what we have in communities around the country. I'd like to trust but verify, and I don't know how to do that with them, because when I go to the bake shop on Sundays, I see over on North Fillmore, there are always cars pulling in and out of there on a Saturday. Granted, that's a big day. We don't need the additional traffic in that part of North Irving. It's dangerous. I know the county has put some cones up and taken parking spots away, but it is not a good spot to walk. I've almost been hit by a truck once by the people across the street who have the rental car company. So, if there's a way for the county to put restrictions on parking, we would like to actually see zero parking off of North Irving into this lot. That may not be realistic. That's what we're going to advocate to the county for. And we would like to see, if they are going to get it, that the county actually respect the residents on North Irving, which is a residential street, and put strict requirements on them in terms of the hours the parking lot can be used and access for North Irving. They've got the robust access from the alley, as we've seen. So if we can come up with something that reduces traffic, ideally no loading from North Irving, no trucks going in on North Irving, and very strict hours, maybe it could work with the county taking parking off that area, not to condense it more, from people who park at the rental car company and also across the street. And I see they're taking one lane out, but it is still very dense. People whip around that corner, and we don't need more traffic on retail there. The other final thing, they focused on the retail traffic that would be there from their renters for the units. They have not addressed what the impact would be if they put retail there too. Where will those people park, and what could that have in terms of additional parking on North Irving Street? It's going to get very busy down there if the lot across the street starts to go up the joist, and the traffic is going to go somewhere, and we don't need more in North Irving. Thanks very much.
Christopher, thank you, and we will look forward to the comments coming from your group. Jamin Miller?
Yes, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can. So go ahead, Jamin. Thank you. 3 minutes.
Yes, fantastic. My name is Jamin Miller, and I'm here to represent the owners of the 10 at Clarendon and 10 Select building adjacent to this one. I myself serve as the president of our property management company. So I thank the committee for your time. This is my first review committee, so it's been very insightful. So thank you for that. But we thought it was important just to come in front of the board with a couple of initial concerns after we've looked at the site plan. I believe the committee has received these concerns in a letter dated September the 8th. And also we've been in contact with the developer and appreciate Justin Yap that we've been in conversation with and his willingness to just engage in the discussion and hear us out on that. So our two main concerns really relate to the alley. So one is the alley width. So there's a lot of operational items that support and feed the tenant Clarendon building. You've got the down ramp to the garage. You've got trash trucks that come through it. Understanding this facility has one of the large, or I think two large, moving truck bays that will be fed by the alley. Already there's operational concerns and congestion that happens, especially where it gets super narrow, right past the generator. That's about halfway down the alley towards 10 Select. So adding additional emphasis in that area, having the building come within, I think what it looks like to be a foot of the property line, and then some of the added cars and especially trucks that are going to help feed and operate both the building and then others that are going to be utilizing the self-storage create some concern that it's going to impact our residents. It feeds probably over 200 cars daily, some multiple as they come and go, as well as other logistics and other uses. So that's one concern. The second, during construction, kind of a question in what, if any, setback there's going to be, what sort of safety requirements from the construction site, since it will sit right on top of the alley, which is a very small space to start with, and how will that be mitigated to prevent impacts to anyone using the alley as it is right now. So that's really all I had to emphasize. Again, I think the committee's in receipt of a letter that outlines a number of points, 7. So I just wanted to sort of hit the top 2 in the consideration of time. But I appreciate everyone tonight and for letting me be a part of the discussion. That's all I have.
Jamin, thank you. And for everybody here, I hope you continue on in this process. There's still other stops along the way, and, please stay involved and engaged. That's what really makes a project best at the end. Our next speaker is Eric Goodman. Eric, can you hear me? You get 3 minutes.
Yes, I can. I'm going to be pretty short. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, you're fine.
Great, great. I really just have one sort of question and concern, and that's in the, I guess, the southwest edge of the property where the driveway apron is and the sidewalk there. The existing sidewalk's very narrow. Where it crosses the existing driveway apron, the cross slope is pretty big, so it may be difficult for people transitioning there in like scooters and wheelchairs and things of that sort. So I'd like to see that worked well and improve for pedestrians. I think the rest of your sidewalks look good, but back in that corner, I think it's awfully narrow, and want to make certain that folks can transition well through that area. So that's pretty much my concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Eric. And last, Claudia.
Hey, everyone. Thank you for your time. So I have 2 comments and one question. I agree with Christopher's comments. I'm one of the residents of 3131 Clarendon. That particular corner of Irvin is not the safest. I work from home, and I think in the past 3 years, I've witnessed maybe 3 crashes while working from home. So getting additional traffic, I think, will make the street less safe. So if we can find ways to avoid that, I think that's very important. And then Jamie also talked about the nightlife. She mentioned that half of the residents have children. I am one of those residents. And so while it sounds like a neat idea, I would be very concerned to have that nightlife so close to the building, knowing that we have so many kids here. And then one question, if the project were to be approved, how long would the construction take?
Roughly.
Yeah.
Yeah, go ahead.
It'd be roughly 15 months.
Okay, thank you.
That's all. The traffic, we're projecting fewer trips than the existing office building today. So the office building at the moment is vacant, but were it not vacant, which could happen if somebody leased it up, it would have more traffic than our proposed use. So we're going to reduce traffic.
Claudia, thank
Yeah,
you.
Yeah, just really quick too. I understand your point. I think there is actually a lot of traffic with the rental trucks, and because we do have that beer garden, you will not believe the amount of people that use Urban Street for parking is for people that only I have one parking spot. My mother lives with me, and especially on the weekends, it's very tough for her to find parking, and so. Your point is well taken, but I wouldn't say that just because the building is closed, the traffic situation has improved. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudia. And I do hope that you will remain involved in the process as your comments will be helpful to the various commissions as they go through, evaluating this project and hopefully everybody making it better. So I think that is the end of this meeting. We will not have another meeting. This, as Kevin pointed out earlier, this will probably hit the commissions sometime in the winter. I do want to thank everybody tonight for participating in a very civil conversation. And even if you didn't agree with everything that was said at the table, you still treated everybody with respect, just to show the nation it still can be done. So wish everybody a good evening, and we look forward to seeing you as this process evolves. Thank you so much for your time.
Thanks.
Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone. Thanks for having us.
Oh, and I do need your cards back, just in case you show up at another meeting.
The lot